Right, so welcome.
Hello,
So,
Ross. Lovely to.
hi. So
Hi.
we have Naila Din with us today. My name is Ross Thornton, and I am one of the presenters on the Inspiration Show. And we're going to talk about women who invest in property today. So, I'm going to just do a little introduction before we start. Naila Din is a property investor and the co-founder of the Links Hub, which brings together the UK's most inspiring creative entrepreneurs. They empower young creatives hungry for success to find their purpose and direction. Leaving home at 18 as a single pregnant woman with £1 in her pocket, it took her 21 years to build a portfolio worth 1.8 million. And she has a portfolio consisting of 5 houses in multiple occupation, as well as land to build a 3-bedroom home, which she plans to develop and sell in 2021. While studying her MBA, Naila completed her dissertation on women building best value wealth through property. The research provides a foundation to offer women the skills and tools to design a strong foundation for wealth through property. Wow, that is just amazing. Like, I have interviewed some amazing women so far on this show, and you have to definitely be up there as
Thank
somebody
you.
who's like just done it all. So I'm really excited to hear about your journey and what inspired you to invest.
Well, thank you for all the introduction. It does, when you hear somebody reading all that, you feel like, oh my God, okay, because you just kind of don't pay attention. You just kind of go on with life. So what inspired me for property was very simply, I wanted to secure a roof over my children's head. I was renting, and when you're renting as a single mum, I was what, 20, just 20, yeah. I had been moving from place to place, and my parents were totally against it. They said, no, you're single mum, how would you pay for it? But my gut said, if I'm on my own, I have to get security for my children. I didn't want us to be turned out at any point. And I think many mothers can sort of understand how that can be such a driving force. So that took me
Absolutely.
into property. I mean, it meant so much to me that I was waking up very early hours collecting fruit picking. Doing fruit picking, I got a brown envelope with like £25 in, polishing the floor at Tesco's, still studying. If my mother ever came to stay with me, I took advantage. I would have work, get work, anything to bring it in. So yeah, you become very creative in finding ways to bring money in. And over 4 years, I raised, I was old fashioned. I mean, now, in property, you actually don't even need money to start a property portfolio, but I didn't know that then. So I saved 16,000 and was able to buy my first property in Cambridge.
Fantastic. And so what sort of strategies have worked for you in property?
So for me, when I first got into property, I was flipping. So I was personal circumstances. I sell my house, and when I sold my house, what I found was the property prices were going up at that time. This was 1998. So center of Cambridge, buying a house for 64, you cannot do that now because those houses are now 340,000. So I bought the house for 64, and in 6 months it had doubled, tripled. So I was able to sell it, and I was like amazed with how much money I had in my hand. But then I bought another property and then sold it. And in the space of a year, I flipped properties, lived in them, sold them, and that gave me a very big deposit, cash deposit. But as I've now educated myself on property, and I'm still educating myself, I found that the biggest return strategies for me was I fell into HMO first. For some people, that's a lot of work, but it was where I started, so I got used to it. And so HMOs do return, make very good returns. My portfolios are in Cambridge, Milton Keynes and Northampton. So, the returns are very high. Each rooms can be like £700, and that's just one room. Whereas that in the north is a whole house.
Yes.
So, and then, yes, the price of the property costs more. So there's more equity. So it is a different way that when you actually look at the value of the prices, the rentals are more as well. But you have to really research what areas you want to invest in. So now, about 2 years ago, I also have one which will be turned into HMO, but it's also at the moment a buy-to-let, and that's so easy. It's like, and I'm like, I know many women do start with buy-to-lets, and it's just, I don't do anything. And it was just like, wow. Whereas the others, I'm actually engaged with the tenants, and there is a change of tenants and there is more wear and tear. But I have learned to do a lot of things myself. So best strategies for starting off, if you're not young and reckless, is, I would say, buy to let. And even with the situation that we have with COVID, it's the most secure strategy, easiest one.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm laughing so much because, as you know, I've invested in property as well, and I do buy to let. I don't do a lot.
And with my research that I found was the most popular amongst women was the buy to let strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely the simplest one to start off with.
Definitely.
Okay, that's brilliant. So, so what would you say is going on with the property market right now? Because obviously we know there's a freeze on stamp duty and certain taxes. There's certain tax allowances to stimulate the market. So what do you think, like, as a seasoned property investor, what do you think is going on with the market right now?
So first of all, I mean, you'd think with the COVID-19 that prices might have dropped, which they haven't, right? And everybody and all the specialists were predicting that they would drop, but they haven't. In fact, in some areas they've increased. However, in some areas they may have gone down slightly, but absolutely not at a point where you'd think, oh, you're going to jump straight away. But does that mean you don't invest right now? No, I would still definitely identify which areas you want to invest in. Create a budget. Like, for instance, when I chose Milton Keynes, when I did my research, I knew that I wanted to buy a 4-bedroom house, 4-bedroom house, and my budget was 200,000. So I was then going there and looking, and it will turn up. So right now, what's happening is the prices are not going down, right? There are some investors who are holding on to their money and looking a bit further down the line to see that when the prices will come down. There are investors who are doing that. I mean, I was in discussion with my tax advisor, and he was saying the same, that many of their clients are just holding on at the moment. They're cash rich, but they don't want to buy just yet. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't, because at the moment there's also very good mortgage deals that you can get hold of as well. So make sure your credit record is good. That's very important. So when you're buying, we do have the stamp duty freeze, which has happened as well. So the stamp duty, savings that you'll make with properties between 125,000 to 500,000. So, but you've got to weigh out that further down the line, if the property goes down, will that saving be really a saving? If it's residential, that's a different thing. There's also need to notice that with the high street, what's happening with the high street, there's a lot of commercial properties, and people are looking at those retail properties and considering whether they can be turned into residential homes. Now, there's also been a big ease on planning permission as well. So that's a very good opportunity to look at how easy will it be to actually turn these retail spaces into residential. And I do want to point out, with my research as well, the most successful property investors, the females property investors, there was only a few of them, but they were all very successful ones, I should say, were actually getting involved with retail investing. So that's something to look into, because we think that buy-to-let's the only one, or HMO, because we've heard those often, but look at the other strategies as well.
And just to point out to those who might be very, very new to the property game,
Yes.
HMOs are houses in multiple occupation. It's where a large house is split into individual rooms. And so instead of having one tenancy agreement for the whole property, you would have individual agreements with the individual tenants.
There's a good point here with HMOs as well. There, with COVID-19, people, because these are all strangers who live in a house, many of them have this thing about mixing. So I am actually looking at my properties and looking at how I can restructure them so that they become individual self-contained units. So people, if they chose not to mix, then they have that unit. And I think there's a demand for that. And so I was looking at 2 of my properties and looking at how I can split them. But then actually that makes them more profitable, because the rents, you can actually increase the rents more. So I was like thinking, okay, that's something I definitely need to look at.
Absolutely. And because with HMOs, there's normally a shared kitchen space or cooking space. Whereas what you're saying is that you might try to convert them into like little bed sits almost, where they're self-contained.
You have to be stylish. It has to be appealing, because you've got to think about the value that you give your, it is a service. And what the quality that you offer, that's the kind of quality of person you're going to attract. And that's very, very important, because when you're starting out, if it is a HMO, you can actually give HMOs to the local council and actually have a guaranteed rent, which is a very good, right now there's a lot of people looking for homes. So that's somewhere where you can actually benefit usually from, because if you had private tenants, they're going to be reliant on jobs, and there's so insecurity around jobs at the moment. So definitely look at the council. The council will, help you do a lot more things by maintaining the house. They even offer grants to, repair it. So there's a lot to look for in that.
Absolutely.
However, you've got to realize that if you give it to the council, there's a certain type of person that you're going to attract, and will that person come with personal issues or things like that? So that can be something that you need to think about. Will they wreck the house?
Well, I mean, this is something that I did many years ago. I rented out one of my properties to the local authority, and they had it for I think they had it for about 6 years. And when they handed it back in exactly the same state of repair that it was when I gave it to them. And anything that wasn't done, I just sort of like pointed it out to them, and they got it fixed. So they do, try whatever they can to sort of put it back in the situation that it was in when they got it. So that, just to put people's mind at rest, that does happen.
I think there's also very important to ask, if you're starting out in property, is to identify what's the income you want to have. What's the first financial independent figure that you want, one that will replace your working salary, and have that very clear in your mind. And then you can look at working backwards from that goal. But there's a second goal that's very, very important, and that's creating the retirement figure. And that's a very different one. So if your income is, say, if you want at retirement to earn, say, 40,000, then what you need to do for the second figure is multiply that by 2 and add a 0 at the end. So if it's 40,000, you would times by 2 is 80. Add a 0, that's £800,000 you need for retirement. That's going to give you the return as the same as that of a £40,000 salary. And also recognize that in, say, 5 or 10 years time, the £1 value will be different. So there are websites that where you might think it's £800,000 now, in 10 years it might be £900,000 you actually need, because the value of the pound will be slightly different.
Yes.
So those things are very important. And what I found was with my training, the people I interviewed as well for my research, they said most people could only were short-sighted. They thought about just replacing their working income. Once they've done that, they just go off to have, do all the things they want, because of course they do. But then they don't realize there's the second figure that's really important. That's very different to give you that security in retirement, because a lot of people get into property because they haven't got pensions and they want to secure a retirement, but the income that they're generating is only replacing what's now, and a lot of things legally happen for when they get to retirement, so they need to think about that.
Absolutely. And there's also lots of tax implications as well when you have property as a business, when you're buy to let it, whether you do a buy to let or a HMO or even a rent to rent, there's still lots of tax implications that you need to look into. And most landlords have to get an accountant or somebody who knows about these things to be able to do their books.
Yeah, and I mean, I would explain, like, for instance, I didn't know anything about property when I started, and I had an accountant, but he was not a property accountant. So in 2016, 2017, a tax, Section 24 tax came in. I heard all about it, but I asked the accountant and he said, oh, you've got nothing to worry about. Your income isn't at that level. So I thought, that's fine. I don't need to worry about it. But I was interested in property, and I bought 2 more properties, had a JV partner on one, and bought 2 more properties. I was only working 1 day a week as a teacher, so my salary was not great, but I wanted to be with young people and I loved working with them. But those properties pushed me into the higher rate bracket. And I was like, I couldn't make sense. I was thinking, if I pay this amount of tax, I can't survive. I will be forced to sell my properties, and I don't want to do that. So what the government's done is it's brought Section 24 for anybody who has property in their own name. So you're being forced to buy turn the properties into a company so that you don't pay the Section 24 tax. So let me explain how it's calculated. So say you're making a profit of 3,000 a month. What's happened is that they phased in, like from 2017, 25% you get of your mortgage interest deducted, and it moves up to like 2021, it'll be 100%. You won't be able to claim any mortgage interest relief, and that gets added. So what happens is that over the period of, is it 4 or 5 years, that £3,000 where you had to pay £3,000 on your income, that's tax, but it's below, so you're okay. It becomes 23,000 if you were paying, say, 20,000 on interest on your mortgage. And there was such a big outcry at that time, and because it didn't affect me, I didn't really pay a lot of attention. So when it did affect me, I got into action. I did my MBA. I had to learn how to ask the right questions, because the accountants were asking me stuff which I had no idea about. So I was like, oh, somebody hold my hand and help me. But you couldn't even do that. You had to educate yourself. So that's why I did the research. And now when I ask the questions, I come from a place of knowledge, and I get treated very differently, and I'm much calmer. So I'm now currently incorporating my portfolio, and so I won't be paying the Section 24 tax, which means more money in my pocket. And I'm really looking at my pension to become a tax wrapper, so I can claw back all that tax I've been paying. Because how the pensions work is that people don't realize, say that for every £80 you put into the pension pot, the government puts £20 in. So little by little you can claw it back. So pensions are really important. If you can look at like the SIP or the SAS pension as wrappers for property, and a lot of women are not aware of that opportunity there.
You mentioned a statistic earlier about women not claiming for pensions as well.
What's happened is when I interviewed Kevin Whelan, one of Britain's top tax pension advisor, a private pension advisor. His comment was that there is 19 billion pounds worth of unclaimed pensions in the UK.
Wow.
Because we move from job to job, and we don't realize where there are pension pots. But there are companies out there who can help you find your pension. They'll just need your national insurance number, and then they can then source.
So it's really important for anyone out there who's near to retirement age, and if you think you might have an old pension somewhere at a workplace, then, you know, get in contact with one of these companies that can help you to piece together all those. Don't let, like, the government, the treasury, take your pension. What did you say, 19 or 90?
19 billion.
19 billion. 19 billion.
And at the end, I mean, you've got
unclaimed pensions.
That money, then where will it go? It goes to the government, who spends it wasting it on buying the wrong masks.
Buying water cannons. So what would you say are some of the barriers for women getting into property right now?
When I did my research, it was very interesting, because I looked at women and wealth in history as well. So through our generations, we carry like a lack of confidence around money. We've made it masculine. However, when I was interviewing Bronwyn as well, it's confidence. So if you think that if the more we educate ourselves, the more we build our knowledge, the more our confidence grows. The difference in me on how I communicate with people, having done the research in my MBA with the research I've created, I come from a more confident place, then I'm thinking more clearly. So it is confidence. And for women, I mean, RW West said that in 2018, there was 178% increase in women moving to property investing.
Wow.
That is huge. Huge. That is huge. Wow. And if you think about it, it was only in 1975, prior to 1975, a woman couldn't take a mortgage unless she had her husband's approval, permission.
Seems ludicrous now, doesn't it?
So if you think about it, there's now property strategies like lease option, which is something I'm looking at now for a flat in London that my daughter's in. We want to buy that because it's right opposite Wembley Stadium. We want to use the lease options. So what lease options is that it's a bit like buy now, pay later, but you have to create the paperwork to do that. I would definitely recommend looking at that strategy as well. These strategies were not around before. There was just the simple, you know, buy to let mortgages that women, you know, got into. But now women don't, you know, your gender's not looked at with a mortgage application. It's just all based on the money that
your ability to pay.
The money the property can generate. Banks love property, they know it's a secure thing, and property will increase as inflation comes. The price, I mean, one of the properties I bought, the one in Milton Keynes, because we bought that in cash, because I had a JV partner with that, I got the original paperwork. So in the 1980s, when it was first built and sold, it sold for 46 shillings, right? So 46 shillings today is £2.50.
Wow.
Right? So that's a 4-bedroom house. So if you think that you know, salaries have gone up, prices of houses, they will double.
I think it depends where you buy it, though, because I think in some parts of the country, house prices have hardly shifted, like in the north. But, you know, in the southeast, London and the southeast, they seem to hold their price a lot more. But I heard something, I don't know if you heard this, that places, because of COVID, it's shifted people's perspectives on property, and people are now realizing that they can move further out of big cities because they don't have to be commuting anymore.
Yes, because if you think about it now, there are scientists as well, investors who actually are in property. I was listening to one of the scientists, she's Irish. The properties in the countryside, So they're huge properties. And if you don't need to commute, you can work from home, you get a very large property and this would be the time to start looking at that, because as time goes on, people become more aware, so the deals become more, challenging maybe. But definitely in the north, I mean, what you would get in the south, you'd get double, triple in the north.
Exactly.
But at the same time, there are a lot of people who from, say China and places like that, who do invest in cities like Manchester and so, because they would rather put their money in property than leave it in the bank.
Yes.
So because it's far more secure, and especially in the UK, because we're in Ireland, property will always be in demand. So it's something that I would definitely recommend. And especially when, I mean, with my portfolio, my plan is to create it into a trust, which will then go down from generation to generation. And it secures my children, so that I feel that I'm of value. It's not just about me. And I think a lot of women do think like that. They think about their families, they think about their children. They want to create something that they can just it can be handed down.
Yeah.
And SAS pensions, definitely something to look at because of inheritance tax and things like that. It mitigates all of those things. And then you can actually send this down from generation to generation, and just securing your children's.
Because I've heard a lot of people say that they'd love to hand their properties over to their children, but then what if their children marry the wrong person? And then, this rogue gets hold of their property portfolio. So I think that's been quite a concern for a lot of people with growing up children.
And it's very interesting because I have had these conversations with my tax accountant as well. So with even how my company is set up, that's been a conversation that we've been, making sure that that's all there. And what's brilliant is that when you talked about, having your knowledge and being confident in what you're asking, you can start thinking about these things because you're not flustered. And I know that before this, I was very flustered because I was thinking there was something wrong with me when I couldn't understand the accountant I had. But he wasn't a property accountant. But then when I got a property accountant, they said, well, you can claim on this, you can claim on that. And I'm like, wow. Yeah, so, and I've also, like, one of the very important things is get somebody to hold your hand and walk through. Like myself, I have properties now, and my plan is to go towards building houses and renovations, and that's where I want to create larger income. I've got Bronwyn as somebody that I found was so approachable. It was like when I interviewed her, I thought, this is like a big sister. I can be myself. And that's kind of get a coach, get somebody who's done things that you want to do or is where you want to be, and don't worry about the money. When you start skimping and saving, you end up with people who don't get you the best value, like I have my accountant.
Absolutely. Some great advice there. Okay, so I think I've just got one more question that I wanted to ask. Let's have a look. So have you got any tips on anyone who is just getting started in the property game? What's the first thing that you would recommend that they do? Do they need to save up for a deposit, or should they find somebody who's got some money? Should they use other people's money?
I think the very first thing, I mean, this would have to be obviously each person's personality. In a couple is going to make a difference, but I would definitely say make a decision as to what area you want to invest in. Often people invest where it's close to them, maybe an hour's journey. Go and visit that town, go and talk to the estate agents, get a feel of the place, actually get into action, talk to them. Obviously you'll be new, so they will never give you the best deals. they have deals which go straight to their they've got investors that they would always show their best deals to first. But the thing is, I know when I went to Milton Keynes, and this was when I first started, was I went around, had a look, had a feel for the place. Then I decided, like, what's my maximum that I need to, and what type of house, what's my maximum, and what's the strategy. So those are important points to think about. Once you've done that, also then identify what's your freedom, the amount of money you want to generate, okay? So that you don't have to work, that replaces your working income. Then make the decision, okay, now go out and find the property. You can see money hasn't come into it just yet, but it's in the background because I've identified how much my budget is, or how much I want to find the house for. Once you found or whilst you're looking for the house, thinking about how you're going to source the money, because this is where creative finance comes. You start talking to your tax advisors. Can you remortgage your property? Can you release equity from your own house? Because sometimes it's right there under your nose, but you just don't know. Then start sharing it with family. You will be surprised. Some people have money sitting in their bank accounts that's not doing anything.
Or under the mattress.
And then, you can give them more of a return than, say, the ISAs, which is another tax efficient way to save money, because, you get money back from, you don't get taxed on it. So look at those things. Then start reaching out further, getting connected to people who are in property and saying that, I'm really interested to find JV partners who want to work with me. Yeah. So you work with people further afield, raising funds. And be prepared to make mistakes. I know with houses, people get frightened because it's a lot of money. It's not like you lose £20 here or there. But trust me, a property is so forgiving. You make it back, it comes back if you make a mistake, but that lesson you learn is incredibly valuable. Once you then can identify the property, you're able to move. So if you think about what athletes do, athletes always visualize their end goal and work backwards. That's exactly what you've got to do here. There are too many people who think, well, I've only got £10,000. I don't know what to do with it. If you have that mindset, you will never buy a property.
Yeah, absolutely.
Guaranteed. But if you go the other way, you start doing the action, identifying the place you want to invest in, go on Zoopla. You can then see how much the property has gone up or down in that area. You can even go on Spare Room and look at what rentals are coming in for people in that area. So it's about research. So become better at research. If you're a person that gets bored with things like that, then put a timer on your phone that for 1 hour you're just going to do this, and then after that you will reward yourself with whatever. And make it a game, because with things that I don't like doing, I have to put a timer on and say that after this I'm going to eat those chocolate buttons and then I'll do it.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah, but that's some great advice there. And I think the only other thing I would add is maybe go on a couple of these courses as well.
Yeah, there are so many.
Yeah, there are so many out there, and you pick up little golden nuggets from each course that you go on, and some of them are actually free. And some of them are quite low cost.
Sorry, I interrupted you there. There's I recently Propel, a women's group. There are so many women's groups there, and I know Propel have an options course. They had Bronwyn showing how to raise funding, and you link to that and start connecting. They have a WhatsApp group. If you have a monthly subscription, you can ask any question, and women ask questions and Bronwyn even answers. So you've got free advice.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we met on the Propel Network, didn't we? We both
did,
spoke at their events.
Yes.
So yeah, they're a wonderful property networking group.
They're genuinely. I mean, I think it's not just because they're all female. Maybe it is because they're all female.
It is.
You feel that you can be exactly how you want to be, and judgment, and that's really important.
It's very important. Very, very important. Wow. I think you get given some great tips there and some great information. You're so knowledgeable, and I think people are going to really learn a lot from this. So
Thank you
thank you
very
so, so much.
Thank you.
And hopefully, we'll chat to you again in a few months' time and see what the
Yes.
property
Oh,
market's
I would
doing.
love that. I would love that.
And
Let's show you
yeah,
where I've got to with my
see where you've got to with
incorporation.
your land that you're going to
Yes,
sell, and the
yes,
business,
yes,
and
yes. And
the
how
trust.
great I've gone from like the challenges I'll be facing, like that. Oh, like I'm
Oh,
building
you'll
a
be
3-bedroom
fine.
house, which I've never done before. Where I'm going to get money from? But you're just gonna dive in.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to dive in. And as a single parent as well, you've done it all as a single mom, and I just take my hat off to you. And I hope that you inspire other single parents that to let them know that they can do it, and
Yeah, I think the biggest thing
it's
is
confidence.
our children, without us realizing, look to us as
Yes,
their inspiration.
yes.
Schools tell us it's celebrities and things like that. It's absolutely not. They are looking at you,
Mm.
and when you are running after your dreams, no matter what they are, then you are inspiring them without even realizing it.
And also, like, if you're not confident enough to even go and invest yourself, you could actually help somebody else. Like, you could do some research for somebody else and get knowledgeable, and get involved in the game, because
Yes.
you can start at any level. So
And there's
yeah.
like even Bronwyn has her first half hour or hour with her is free.
Yeah.
And that's priceless. That
Yeah.
gives you kind of a nudge, and you can reach out to any of us and ask a question if you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just drop any of us a line. I'll put all your details in the comments
thank you.
when I post this video. Have you got any books or anything like that you want to
Well,
promote?
yes. Well, right now the book
Mm.
I'm writing is, Saving for Poverty. Right, the
Oh,
title
okay.
is that, and that's a women's guide to building best value wealth.
Mm.
And
Okay.
it's using my research from my dissertation. And there is a second book, which is, I'm a girl. Why the hell do I have a brain? And that's
Ah.
because being brought up from in an Asian background, ethnic background, um, money is very made very masculine, and
Mm.
even though we're in the 21st century, there is if I exist, then there'll be many other women who exist who are still getting their heads around money,
Mm.
and being successful feels like uncomfortable because they always thought that the man has to be successful. But
Mm.
that more and more women are choosing even to be single, they're not choosing to get married. So being independent,
And
all of that
self-sufficient.
is so important.
And
So
we live longer. Women live
yeah, we
longer, so
do.
we have to have more. We have to have more handbags.
And I'm a grandma now.
No
We
way.
are of the ages where I have so much to enjoy and love,
Mm,
and money gives you that freedom. I mean,
mm,
I wake up and I can hear people going to work. I don't have to.
mm,
It is
mm.
wonderful.
And you can choose to do the work that you absolutely love. And guess what? You become good at it because you love it, and then
Yeah.
you get even more rewards.
But if I can do it, and I know everybody says that, if I
If
can
I
do it,
can do it, anyone can do it.
and I would definitely
Mm,
say 80% is personal development.
mm,
I would
mm.
absolutely, I know you're a coach,
Yes.
and that would be, working with yourself,
Mm,
getting that alignment right, so that as the money comes in, you're not just paying parking tickets and things like that. Because I've been there. The money comes in bills and fines and stuff like that.
mm,
Getting the personal development right,
mm.
80% is
It's
that
mindset.
inner work,
Mm,
and then 20%, no matter what you do, it just kind of works.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Wow. So I'm going to say goodnight. So thank you so much. Don't forget to send me the links to your book, and I'm going to drop them in the comments when I drop this video.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, keep us posted. I'd love to hear your
It's
news.
been
And
a pleasure meeting you, Rose.
okay,
Just
thank
see
you.
myself meet in you.
Okay.
Take
Okay.
care.
Good
Bye.
night.